Good day, students. This is Mr. Bauer. This is the YouTube video for Friday, May 14th. I'm making this video because I was not able to teach today. Okay, I'm going to share a screen with you so we can get started. Now, where I'm going to be sharing at, this is Schoology Week 16. And I just want to review, I've listed the weekly assignments, the discussion, the study skills, parts of speech presentation that I showed you on Monday, the idiom and analogy for the week, the fall study sheet, which is what I'm going to be going over today, and the notes portal. So just after you watch the video, to prove that you have watched it, I want you to take notes and then stick it into this portal here. I don't care what the notes look like as long as they're notes actually on what I've taught you. Okay? Please do that by 4 o'clock today. Let me just go over the assignments for the week. Read and review the presentation on study skills. Do the discussion for week 16. The idiom and the analogy. You can look at them and just write down what you think they mean. Put your two vocabulary words. Of course, the video you're watching right now is the one that's mentioned here. Put your notes on this video in the notes portal and review the final exam study sheet. I blended those words together, I'm sorry. So anyways, here's some important dates. This coming Monday, as in after this weekend, in 2 days, you'll be taking the final exam on Monday, 5/17. On Friday, we'll be going over portfolio expectations. And basically what that is a lesson where I'll be teaching you on what I'm expecting the portfolio to look like. And the portfolio due date will be the last day of class, which is 5/28. Okay. Because we're working mostly right now on the final exam, I'm not going to go into details on the portfolio until we're done with this. So here's the lesson today. I wanted to go over the study sheet for the final exam. So let me open that up for you. Okay, I'm going to go fairly quickly here since this is review. Okay, the first section was on pronouns. You can also review what was I chapter 1. Pronoun is a word that replaces repeated and unnecessary nouns. For example, in the sentence, Johnny went to Johnny's house, you can change that to Johnny went to his house. Instead of saying Blaine is the teacher, you could say he is the teacher. Now here's a general list of pronouns. Subjective case pronouns, I, he, she, we, they, that, those, and it. Those are pronouns that will generally be in the subject of a sentence. The objective case pronouns, me, him, her, us, them, and it, those pronouns will go in the predicate of a sentence. Possessive case pronouns are basically the ones that show ownership. My, mine, his, her, hers, our, ours, your, yours, their, theirs, and its. Will usually go in either subjective or objective. Generally speaking, the ones that end in S, like theirs, yours, ours, hers, will most likely be in objective case or in the predicate of the sentence. Plurals, see what was I chapter 2, words that express more than one thing. The general rule for plurals is to just add S at the end of the word. Let me give you this example. Here's a sentence that definitely needs some plurals. Jalen's toy, another toy, and another toy were left on the beach. Instead, you could change that to Jalen's toys were left on the beach. Since we're all talking about the same thing, then we could just make it plural. Some plurals have unusual forms. For example, child becomes children when it's plural. Moose stays moose when it's plural. While man becomes women when it's plural, and man becomes men. Some unusual plural forms are also pronouns. For example, we, us, they, them, our, ours, their, and theirs. Each of those are the plural pronouns. Continuing on, we can look at possessives, which is in what was I chapter 3, form in which a word is shown to have ownership over another thing or characteristic of a word. Now, one of the things that some people have been confused on in the past, in the test, you'll find a sentence similar to this. The car that belongs to Tina is in the parking lot. And then the instructions will tell you, change it to a possessive. And people just rewrite the car that belongs to Tina is in the parking lot. Okay, don't do that. You need to change it to Tina's car is in the parking lot. The possessive comes when you put an apostrophe S after the subject. Subject in this case is Tina. So you don't say the car that belongs to Tina, you say Tina's car. Okay? So please be able to fix sentences like that in the test. There will be some sentences very similar to that. Possessive plurals, put an apostrophe after the S. Now, when a word is both possessive and plural, the apostrophe goes at the end. Let me give you a sample sentence. The dog's owners left them off of their leashes. So it's several dogs, so it's D-O-G-S. It's possessive, so you put the apostrophe after the S, and then it's owners, because that's what the dogs own, is their owners. If you own a dog, you know that really the dog owns you anyways. Left them off of their leashes. So it's multiple dogs, because it's multiple dogs with multiple owners, then that's why you put the apostrophe at the end. If it was one dog, then you'd put the apostrophe before the S. Okay, continuing on. Possessive pronouns, they are he becomes his when it's possessive. She becomes her or hers when it's possessive. It becomes its when it's possessive. Keep in mind it's not IT apostrophe S, it's just ITS. They becomes their. You becomes your or yours. And here's an example sentence. Instead of the house that belongs to them is on the corner, you should say their house is on the corner. So again, as possessive shortens the sentence, and that's what pronouns tend to do, is they shorten things. Continuing on, let's learn about verbs. In What Was I, chapter 4, it goes into more detail about verbs, so you can peruse through that chapter. A verb is a word that tells action or expresses a state of being. The verb is the basic word type in many different languages, particularly in Arabic, also in Hebrew. Here's some examples. An action verb. She washed the dishes. Washing is the action that she did. Being verbs. The fondue is delicious. Delicious is the state of the fondue. So verbs must agree with their subject in number, which is another thing that people sometimes get confused with. In English, here's the rules. I'll show you with the examples. The athlete runs for her school's team. Singular verbs usually have an S after them. The athletes run for their team. Plural verbs usually have no S in English, but other languages may be opposite, where you put S's on both items, particularly in Spanish. Now, punctuation. See What Was I, chapter 6. This is probably one of the longest sections that's going to be on the test, but let me try to go over this. We use punctuation marks with writing to tell us how we say things in written sentences. There are three broad categories: the enders, the separators, and the connectors. Let me go how the enders work. The enders are the periods, ellipses, exclamation points, and question marks. The period ends a sentence and replaces deleted words with an ellipsis. Or basically, if a sentence is unfinished, you just put 3 periods to show that it's continuing on. That's called an ellipsis. Period also abbreviates words. The exclamation point ends a sentence that shows great emotion or surprise. It doesn't say what the emotion is, so it could be a happy, angry, sad. It just shows that there's great emotion. The question mark, which looks like this, ends an interrogative sentence that's asking something. Let me give you some examples. Ending a sentence, Luis is a great friend, period. Abbreviating, the Reverend, period, Luis is working on a PhD. Ending with an ellipsis, we just don't know what Luis is, ... We don't know what the rest of the sentence is saying because it's done. Exclamatory sentence, what a great friend Luis is. Interrogative sentence, is that your friend, Luis? Okay. Now let's take a look at the separators. Commas, parentheses, dashes, quotation marks, semicolons, and colons. The comma separates parts, list, and clarifies a sentence. Parentheses separate phrases inserted into a sentence. Dashes insert a related thought into a sentence. And quotation marks separate your words from someone else that you are quoting. Semicolons separate larger parts when commas might confuse, and they can also combine two related sentences into one. Colons separate the heading from the rest of the sentence, like a list, for example. Now, let me give you some examples of each of these. A comma, the little boy, comma, the young one, comma, played, comma, ran, comma, and jumped. There is some question about whether there should be the last comma here before and in the list. Some people believe that it should not, and some people believe that it is. So either way is acceptable. Parentheses, his toys, a truck and a shovel, are in the sandbox. Dashes, his sister, dash, the older one at the drinking fountain, dash, wants to play with her own friends instead. Quotation marks, he said to his sister, comma, please play with me. And you can see the quotation marks puts the kid's words separate from the rest of the sentence. Semicolon, the boy wanted to swing. He asked his sister to push. Colons, these are the kids at the park. Josue, his sister, and JR. So you can see how each of these work in the example sentences. By the way, this is posted to Schoology, so you can look at this as long as you want, even though I'm going quick here in the presentation. The connectors are apostrophes, semicolons, yes, it has two jobs, and hyphens. Apostrophes connect words by replacing deleted letters. They also connect possessive words to the letter S. Semicolons' second job is to replace commas when other commas are present to avoid confusion. And hyphens connect two small words to make one big word. Let me give some examples. Apostrophes, is not becomes isn't, Gary becomes Gary's. Okay. Semicolons, bless the river, semicolon, dawn, the first morning, semicolon, and brisk are really good poems. Now, since one of the names of the poems actually had a comma in it, we use a semicolon to avoid any confusion between the separating or the connecting of the ideas together. Hyphen, on blackboard becomes blackboard, in table becomes in table. Anytime two words can usually be put together as one, you can use a hyphen. Some words, like for example, homework, you have home and work, you connect them. The hyphen has been deleted and it's just become one word because the word's so common. Now, there's some unusual facts in the book What Was I that we had talked about. Confusing words in the chapter 5 on verbal abuse, confusing punctuation in chapter 7, the complete dangler, and cliches, death sentence in chapter 8. Review old grammar rules, writing skills, and internet etiquette in chapters 9 through 11. Is not a lot. There will not be a lot on that in the test. So for that section, you don't necessarily have to review all of those chapters. Mainly reviewing the chapters that we went over. Also in study skills, and this is going to be on the test, but this was part of the presentation I gave you on Monday, so you could review that presentation. Recognizing titles, headings, subheadings, vocabulary, understanding what author's intent is. In other words, the purpose of the author is writing something. Is the author writing to persuade? Is the author writing to entertain? Things like that. Know that one well. Theme, like the difference between science and social studies articles. You want to be able to know sort of like what the purpose is of it. Summaries, be able to recognize them, and comprehending the article itself. Last section on nouns, a person, place, thing, or idea. A noun is the basic word type of English. It is usually the subject of a sentence. The subject is the word that the sentence is about. Examples, the black cat played with the white dog. The words cat and dogs are things. A young woman was the one who works at the store. Woman, one, and store are persons and a place. The holiday is coming soon. Holiday would be an idea. So you need to be able to recognize nouns, but also recognize which type of noun, person, place, thing, or idea. Okay. Know this, often animals are considered very human-like because of their emotions and things like that, and especially pets. But for the purpose of categorizing them, if you're talking about an animal, it would not be considered a person, it would be considered a thing, okay? That's not to insult the animal, but I just don't want you to get something wrong on a test because you're like, oh, I love Muffy so much, okay? Now, the other thing, you will need to know all of the parts of speech: nouns, verbs, pronouns, adjectives, adverbs, conjunctions, prepositions, and interjections. Those are all listed on the, the presentation that I sent you on Monday. Okay, this was a quick review of the study sheet. Make sure that you take notes on this and put those notes into the portal here in week 16, where it says notes portal. Please do that by 4 p.m. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day and good luck on the test on Monday.